Hello, everyone, and welcome to Big League Dreaming, the podcast, a show about fulfilling your dreams and taking it to the next level. I am John Gonzalez, the dad, and this podcast is about baseball. It's a dad and his three sons, Zach, Ty, and Zane, where we get to talk about the sport that we love so much. This week, it's a little podcast to kind of catch up on what's happening in baseball in mid-April. And, of course, when you're talking about baseball in mid-April, especially here in the north or in the States, I'm based in Michigan, we deal with weather a lot. On the East Coast, they deal with weather a lot. In sunny Florida, maybe not so much, right? But right now, we are in the middle of it. In fact, yesterday, I'm the Tigers fan, and we had to deal with a 5-hour delay in the start of Sunday's game at Comerica Park, where the Tigers were taking on the San Francisco Giants, looking at a possible sweep. In fact, I was going to go to the game myself. I said to my wife on Saturday, if the Tigers win again on Saturday, that makes us 2-0 into this series, going for the series sweep. Let's go to Comerica and Detroit. She said, no, I'm not going. Well, good thing we didn't go, because that 5-hour delay turned into a postponement. That game will be made up on July 24th. But I don't know what happened over there at Comerica Park. Not a lot of happy fans who kind of waited it out. Not a lot of rain during the day, but the weather is so tricky and hard to predict at this time of year. Speaking of weather, today is Monday, and today is the annual Patriots game, April 17th at Fenway Park. It's usually 11 o'clock start, and that game just went into delay, where the Red Sox are taking on the Los Angeles Angels. Ohtani pitching there, and he's 2 for 2 already, and they're already up on the Red Sox. And I noticed that there's, I think, a rookie making his debut for the Red Sox, a couple of rookies there, so I'm hoping Zane later in the podcast will give us an up-to-date on some of those guys. But the biggest news of the day is taking place for fans of the New York Mets. I can't wait to hear from Ty a little bit about what's going on with his Mets, because it's Brett Baty Day, right? And you've been hearing about this prospect for a while. Got a cup of coffee last fall for the Mets, but the Mets are struggling right now. They need something to kind of get them going. Baty's done it all at the AAA level, just pounding the ball there. So I'm excited to hear what Ty has to say about Brett Baty, because, I mean, it's a prospect that everyone's talking about, right? A once-in-a-lifetime prospect. Hopefully he fulfills all the big promises that he's meant to fulfill, because I want to see these young players succeed at the big stage. Right now, for the Tigers, I don't know if it's happening too much there. I mean, during the rain delay yesterday at Comerica, I was listening to some of Detroit sports radio, and they're already asking, is Spencer Torkelson a bust? Is Riley Green a bust? I don't know about either one of them calling them a bust at this point. Yes, they're struggling. They can barely get over 200. They're just struggling because they're young, and they're going to struggle, right? Prospects struggle at this point of the game. It's all about adjustments. What adjustments can they make at the major league level? Tigers are in for a long season, even though they did win those 2 games against the Giants. Not a lot of bright spots this year. Pitching will carry them through, keep them in games. If they can get some hitting, if Miggy can come through with some heroics and get the walk-off in extra innings like he did on Saturday. I mean, there are some moments. Tiger fans are going to have to live for those moments when we will win a game here and there, but it's still going to be a long season. So I'm going to throw it over to Zach right now. I know he's been following his Mariners intensely, loving this run that Kelenic is on, right? Jared Kelenic, also a big prospect, right? Who struggled mightily, and it was good. It's been good to watch him, have this incredible hitting streak. I don't know, what is he at right now? Zach, 9 games? It had 4 home runs in 4 games in a row. It's good to see him. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts on Jared Kelenic and your thoughts about prospects having to make their debuts in mid-April when the weather's not so hot. All right, off to you, Zach.
Hey, thanks, Dad. April baseball in the major leagues. It's an interesting time. Trying not to, look at the numbers too closely. For statistics and all that, you kind of want to wait till the 30-day or 45-day marker before you really start judging guys too much on their offensive production. But baseball's back, so you're excited, and that's really all you have to hang on to. So it's a tough time, but it's a really fun time for fans as well. I know you called the whole Detroit Tigers situation a fiasco, and anytime there's a rain delay for that long, that's definitely what it is. But yes, excited for some of these prospects that are getting called up recently. Looking forward to seeing what the Mets and the Brett Beatty kid is going to do this year for them. So definitely looking forward to that, as well as I know they just called up their catcher, the top prospect in baseball at one point, Francisco Alvarez. So hopefully he'll do well for Ty and his Mets. But yeah, Dad, Jared Kelenic is just kind of on a tear right now. I think he did homer 4 games in a row. He's on a 10-game hitting streak right now. Watching the game yesterday, you can just tell he has a lot of confidence at the plate, as he should. And so the Mariners won yesterday 1-0 over the Rockies to complete the sweep, the 3-game series sweep over Colorado. And in the 6th inning, Kelenic came up with 2 outs, got a single to the right side, scored a run, had the only RBI in the game. And then later on in the 8th inning, Mariners are up 1-0, and there's 2 outs, guys. Rockies had 2 men on, and there was a fly ball to right field. Kelenic went down the line, dove full extension, and caught it to save a run, to basically save the game. So yeah, that was a Jared Kelenic win yesterday, but he didn't do it all himself. The Mariners ace, Luis Castillo, was absolutely lights out yesterday. Really lucky that I was able to see Castillo start in Chicago at Wrigley last Monday, to see him live in person. He's just so nasty. Reminds me a lot of King Felix. He's going to get a lot of those comparisons this year and the years to come. He actually had a perfect game going yesterday into the 7th inning. I was sitting in my chair, didn't leave my spot, and then we had family over, and I got up to go say bye to my family, and came back inside, and there were 2 runners on base, and he gave up the perfect game. So yeah, definitely my fault that I left my seat. That's why Luis obviously didn't get the perfect game yesterday. But anyways, I'm confident that he'll have better outings, just as good outings later on this year and the years to come. So sorry, Luis. But yeah, it's great to see Kelenic finally putting it together. When he was on the Mariners roster opening day 2021, he struggled a lot, and he was bouncing back between AAA Tacoma and Seattle. Came up at the end of the year. He had an awesome September 2021. Last year, kind of the same story, back and forth, just a lot of strikeouts, and he was up at the end of the year, and he had a good August and September last year. He went to California in the offseason and changed some things with his swing. So he's definitely putting the work in, and we're all really excited to see him produce early on in the year. The Mariners taking that gamble on him to stick with Kelenic rather than go after, trade some of their prospects to get a left fielder. It's working out for them so far. They did go and acquire A.J. Pollock to face the lefties, to take that pressure off of Kelenic. But he homered off of a lefty the other day, so to see him hit off of the lefties as well, we're all really excited about it. But yeah, fun time of year. Looking forward to seeing some of these young kids come up. I know Jarren Duran, and for your Red Sox, Zane, and also Zach Neto, the shortstop for the Angels, made his debut recently. I saw Grayson Rodriguez got called up by the Orioles. He's a big-time starting pitcher, big-time arm. I like Grayson Rodriguez a lot. And also want to mention Esteury Ruiz, who's the starting center fielder for the Oakland A's. I like him a lot. Good contact hitter, super fast. he's going to steal a lot of bases this year. I anticipate seeing him probably at the top of the leaderboards for stolen bases in the American League this year. So hopefully Ruiz can have a good year in Oakland as well. So that's what I got. I guess I'll toss it over to Zane now. And what you got for us, Zane?
Thanks, Zach. Yeah, it seems like the spring weather has been, very eventful so far to start the MLB season. I know it's been something we've been dealing with a lot so far this spring in college baseball. Games getting moved around all the time, when you're playing, what time you're playing. But in the MLB, it's going to be very interesting to see how a lot of this plays out, especially later in the year. Like you said, the Red Sox were in a pretty long delay today with the Angels, and I know on the broadcast they were talking about, well, with this new balanced schedule, how's it going to play out when, say they go to Los Angeles. I think they go to LA next month to play the Angels, and say one of those games gets rained out, and that's the last time you see them all year. What do you do then? So, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of factor this new balanced schedule plays when it comes to rainouts, makeup dates, and stuff like that. But, that's just, spring weather and what can come with playing games in March, April, and early May even, especially in the Midwest and the East Coast. But, like you guys were talking about, a lot of people have made, their returns and debuts. The Red Sox had Brian Bayo on the mound today for the Red Sox. He made a few starts at the end of last year and kind of solidified himself as someone that could be, part of the future plans for the Red Sox rotation moving forward. And, he came into spring training, had a little forearm tightness. They shut him down for a little bit. Had a couple, rehab stints in the minors, and today was his debut, and obviously it wasn't that great. He only went 2 2/3, gave up 8 hits, 5 runs, but he was pitching through a downpour, so not the ideal conditions for someone to make their return to the big leagues, their first start of the season after coming off an injury. So I think he'll be fine. He's been someone that's been an okay arm for the Red Sox in their rotation. That's always going to be the Red Sox big question mark this year is their pitching, but their bullpen has been good so far, which has been kind of a surprise to some people. There's a lot of question marks in that bullpen, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. Is it going to last? Is it going to break down at some point? Who knows? We'll see. I'm not going to hold my breath on it. Jarren Duran, like Zach said, made his comeback. I think he played about 50 games last year in the big leagues, did okay. Kind of similar to Bayo, young guy that's outfielder. You lost Mookie Betts, and he's someone that they kind of wanted to ease their way into using him. And he hit 300 in his career in the minors, and they've had a couple injuries, and they thought now was the time to bring him up with Adam Duvall going down, who was very hot for the Red Sox to start the year. But he's going to be a guy to watch. I don't think he's going to be, as eye-popping as some of the other prospects. He's not going to, hit a bunch of home runs. He's going to be, get you 1 or 2 hits a game. If he has a 1-hit game, he'll probably get a walk along with it, but he's going to strike out a lot. But he's also going to take bags when he does get on base. The bigger bases coming into play and the limits on pickoffs is going to help him out a lot. And I think that's where he's going to thrive, is more on that side of offense, is when he gets on base and, creating chaos on the base pass. I think that's going to be more of his game. But, it's interesting to hear how the Tigers fans are already talking about, Torkelson potentially being a bust. I mean, again, like you guys have been saying, it's definitely too early to tell. But, one thing I think the Tigers definitely did was rush Torkelson, through the minor league system. I think, they sped him up really quick and called him up very fast. I think that was more just to please the fans, to try and get a big name up there and give them something to look forward to, get people tuning into the games, coming out to the ballpark. But at the end of the day, you got to look out what's best for your investments, and Torkelson's a big investment for them. He's supposed to be the future of the franchise, and you can't rush guys' development like that. And I think, I think he's going to have an okay career, but I don't think it's going to be what everyone thought it was when he was, one of the top draft picks in that, I believe it was the 2020 draft class. So, I think he was, one of the first couple picks in the draft, and, coming out of, I believe, Arizona State, he was supposed to be the guy. He was supposed to be the guy everyone was talking about, hyping up. But, even saying that, dude got drafted in 2020, and we're sitting here 2023, that's 3 years. That's pretty quick, especially when he didn't really get a season in 2020. So, you really got 1.5 years of minor league ball under your belt. That's very, very fast for hitters. The game can speed up on you, and with all these changes and all these new rules going into the game, it's going to be interesting to see how his career plays out. Definitely too early to call him a bust, but I think he's just going to be okay. I wouldn't be surprised if he turns into a little bit of a journeyman around the league. I don't know too much about these guys the Mets have coming up, but kind of from the Red Sox side of things and the AL East, I think the Red Sox are going to be in that 4th place, 5th place with the Orioles going back and forth. I don't think they make the playoffs this year. I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do around the trade deadline. I think there's some big names that they have in their minor league system that, I think they might, ship off to try and get some better guys that are closer to being ready at the big league level. I think the Red Sox have some good young pieces with, they signed Devers long term. He's only 25, 26 years old. They got Casas over there playing first base, and they have a really good hitter in Nico Cavadas, in the minor league systems, just kind of waiting at this point. So I wouldn't be surprised if he gets traded around the trade deadline. But it's going to be interesting to see how all this shakes out, and the whole MLB season. Again, it's very early to say who the front runners are and what's going to happen come September, and what's going to be going on around the league then. I think that 3rd place spot and 2nd wild card spot in the AL does come down to probably the last week of the year. I think it's going to be a very interesting race, for the AL wild card. I think a lot of the divisions are going to be probably secured by frontline teams, but I think there's going to be some very interesting races, in the American League wild card. So it's going to be a fun season. It's going to be a great year, and hopefully none of this weather puts too much of a ripple in it, and a lot of people start watching a lot more baseball now that the games are being a little bit faster. I'm a big fan of the pitch clock. It's been really nice to have in the college game. It seems like the games are going by quicker, a little better pace, and I think fans have kind of noticed that as well. So, Ty, I look forward to hearing what you got to say about the prospects the Mets having coming up. So let's see what you got.
Thanks, Zane. Yeah, the Mets have 2 huge prospects coming up right now, Francisco Alvarez and Brett Beatty. Brett Beatty just got called up today, like Dad said in the beginning of the podcast. But yeah, these 2 guys have been on the Mets' big prospect list and on the radar of coming up and really being the face of the franchise here in a couple of years. I mentioned in our opening day podcast, these 2 guys remind me kind of like of how Jose Reyes and David Wright came up. Brett Beatty it totally reminds me of David Wright at 3rd base. So I'm super excited that he got the call up. Excited to see what he does tonight. The game starts in a couple hours here. They're playing out in LA tonight. Beatty's been on fire in AAA. We have MLB TV and we all share it, all of us guys. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but they've been playing a lot of minor league games on MLB TV, which I think is really cool. In previous years, you've had to by the MILB TV as well. So I don't know if you guys have noticed, but there's been a lot of minor league games on, and I've been watching a lot of the Syracuse AAA Mets, and Beatty's been on fire for AAA. I've just been waiting every day. When's he going to get called up? When's he going to get called up? I mean, he's hitting like close to 400 in AAA. I think he's had 4 or 5 home runs, and he's hitting a home run like every other game. So he's going to be super exciting to watch. Left-handed batter. Last year, like you said, Dad, he got a cup of coffee, made his debut in August. The second pitch he saw, he hit a home run. His whole family was there. Super memorable moment. Really cool. If you guys haven't seen that at bat, definitely go check that out. Just a really cool baseball moment. But yeah, these guys are really young, super talented. Beatty was a first-round pick back in 2019 for the Mets. So it's been a few years that we've kind of got to see him grow through the minor league system. And I think this year he'll have a good season with the Mets. I think he'll be on the club for a while. Alvarez got the call up a few weeks ago when Mets catcher Navarez went down. So he's kind of filled the role as the everyday catcher, and he's been kind of shaky with the bat. I definitely think he'll turn it around. He's only had, I think maybe 15, 20 at-bats so far, 1 hit. But he's been great defensively behind the dish. He jumped right in there, and he's handling all the Mets pitchers really well. And the Mets have a really good staff with a lot of versatility. So it's definitely it's a good pitching staff, but hard to manage as a catcher because there's so many different styles. You have Scherzer, who has that sinking fastball. You have the new Cody Senga with the ghost fork and all the stuff he throws, and a bunch of different relievers with a whole bunch of arsenal. So it's definitely tough as a catcher getting just thrown into the everyday role of a MLB team with such a unique and diverse pitching staff with a ton of arsenal. So he's doing really well on the defensive side. So yeah, those are the 2 huge prospects to look out for the Mets. I'm excited to see what Beatty does tonight. Thank you all for listening to this podcast, a little update about spring baseball. We hope you enjoyed it. If you want to check out some of our more of our podcasts, you can check us out at Big League Dreaming on TikTok. You can check us out on Twitter at BLD POD. That's at BLD POD. We're also on YouTube, Big League Dreaming the Podcast. And, of course, Big League Dreaming the Podcast, wherever you listen to your podcast. Spotify, Apple Podcast, everywhere. Thanks again for listening.